hotel industry is thinking about essentially doing away with many of the jobs that were cut during the coronavirus shutdowns. Now they're realizing that, hey, you know what? Maybe we can shift burdens onto our own customers and maybe cut some of our labor force, including people that we rely on to do the housekeeping in our establishments. Now, nearly half of the more than 1 million jobs cut in the lodging industry during the pandemic have yet to be recovered, and that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the recovery has been uneven, with resort markets bouncing back more quickly than cities which rely on business travel and large conventions or conferences that have not yet returned. Now, what they're specifically looking at is kind of changing the business model from providing housekeeping on a daily basis to basically making the customers decide and opt in on those types of services. But it gets even worse than that. Now, some hotels say they want to make permanent changes that were instituted during the pandemic, like offering daily house cleaning only upon request and adding options like mobile or contactless check-in. Guests, they say, don't miss the old ways, and the changes would let them reduce costs. And the scariest part about all of this, other than the fact that workers are not going to be able to get their jobs back, is the fact that the hotel industry is now starting to think of lodging the same way that the airline industry thinks of flights. Oh, you want a little bit of comfort? Well, we're not gonna give that to you. You need to opt in and we're gonna charge you extra. Chris Nassetta, who's the CEO of Hilton, said, quote, "The work we're doing right now in every one of our brands is about creating more labor efficiencies," it's a nice euphemism there, "particularly in the areas of housekeeping, food, and beverage and other areas. When we get out of the crisis, those businesses will be higher margin and require less labor than they did pre-COVID." So they're shifting additional costs onto customers. They're cutting their labor force and essentially thinking about making people opt in for the services that were previously provided prior to the pandemic. And Dr. Rashad Richey, I'd love to hear what you think about this. Are you looking forward to hotels operating much like airlines do?
I'm looking forward to boycotting them. You see, there's a way to fight this, right? So naturally, capitalism is doing exactly what capitalism is designed to do. And that is to respect their bottom line more so than their human capital. So that's what's really happening. And there's a way to fight back through information like what you're doing right now, through connection to others who are in cahoots with them by saying we're not going to tolerate this, we will withdraw our support of these kinds of hotels engaged in this practice. I guarantee you they will snap back right if you have a massive enough movement. Now, when you look at the human side of this, and that's one thing about policy. Policy should always lead with a human side first. You have individuals who have been working in the industry for 15 to 20 years. They were laid off because of COVID. They expected to get their jobs back once the economy started to bounce back. And now they're being told no. They're being told that your services are no longer available. Well, those people are connected to families. Those individuals are connected to children. You see, it actually creates a more detrimental economic ecosystem when you calculate how much is lost. One calculation I think had it up to $180 million immediately will be lost because of this kind of mismanagement of human resources. And so we see it happening. This is the beginning of it, and we have to respond in kind so that we can limit the fallout of real, everyday, hardworking people.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. There's so many negative ramifications of the direction that the hotel industry is going in. Because one other thing that people should keep in mind is that the jobs that we're talking about here happen to be, believe it or not, well-paying unionized jobs. Many of the hotel workers, including those who do the housekeeping and house cleaning, are unionized. They make far more than minimum wage. And what some of these workers are noticing as they are, some of them are being called back to work, is that they've lost their seniority and they're not being given full-time work. and they're not qualifying for the same benefits that they previously qualified for. And then at the same time, I do want to just quickly discuss the shift toward automation and self-service. Now, this is coming from a personal opinion, and it's gonna be a little bit of a rant, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I actually want human connection. I don't want to check myself out. I don't want to check out my own groceries at a self-checkout area. I want to talk to a person when I call and I need help with a billing issue, for instance. And all of these labor efficiencies, again, are meant to shift the burden from the corporations onto the consumer, right? Onto Americans who need these services or use these services, just so these companies can cut their labor costs. So people lose their jobs, they lose the benefits that come along with those jobs, and a lot of that burden then gets shifted onto consumers who are getting far less for what they're paying for. I mean, it's just a lose-lose situation. And when you really think about, you mentioned capitalism and this economic model, this is the natural way things are gonna go, right? The whole point is to maximize profits, and the way you do that is by cutting costs. And labor costs happen to be, the most expensive part of running a business. So if they can find a way to cut these people's jobs, of course they're gonna do it. And so we as consumers might have a little bit of power, but I'm actually really concerned, because while we might have some antitrust regulations, I'm worried that we'll also experience the same thing that we have experienced with airline industries, which is, the monopolies, not really giving you much of an option. If you need to fly from one place to another, it's not like you've got a ton of options. And most airlines now operate the same way. We could be seeing something very similar with the airline, with the hotel industry.
Yeah, the greatest threat to the American workforce is automation. But the powers that be, they want you to think it's our brown brothers and sisters who are seeking opportunity for employment in the United States of America, and it is not. It is a great distraction to say, let's blame these individuals and let's ignore the reality of automation and how many jobs automation eliminates every single year. Let me say something very clear. They don't need to make all that money. See, that's what it comes down to. Are they able to still be profitable and rich and pay their bills without doing this? Yes, they can. They don't need to make all that money, but they feel like they are empowered to, because when they start making these decisions that eliminate the human angle of what they do as a corporation, nobody challenges them. There's no policy to stop them. There's no massive boycott of their enterprise. They may get a small political or public relations black eye, but it's temporary. They're not afraid of one negative story. They're afraid more so of you, people, and people organized against them. And until we can figure out how to be a little more strategic and coordinated in how we approach these companies, they will continue to do it, and they will hold their breath and wait for the negative story to pass, and then continue to do this to real people every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I think it's important to give you some actual numbers in regard to the unionized jobs that are being sacrificed here. This is the last graphic. The New York Times reports that the median wage for housekeepers in the United States is $12.61 an hour. But a spokesperson for Unite Here, the labor union representing hotel workers, said that the wages for many union housekeepers are far, far higher, up to at least $27 per hour. He said many are making hundreds of dollars less per month on unemployment than they would if they were working. And that's an important point to really drill on, because what we keep hearing over and over again in corporate media is that there's a labor shortage because everyone is incredibly lazy, they're collecting unemployment and they refuse to go back to work. But in reality, especially when it comes to the hotel industry, people are itching to get back to work. They want to go back to work. The problem is they're not being offered the same position that they had prior to the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, they're getting part-time shifts, they're not qualifying for the same benefits that they qualified before, and they're losing their seniority as if they're absolutely like just new employees at the hotel. It's absolutely shameful behavior, but this is what the system it does. This is the whole point, right? If they can find ways to cut labor costs, they're gonna do it to maximize their profits. And you're right, we need to fight, we need to be organized, and we need to make sure that we can do what we can to help maintain what little labor power remains, right? We have unionized jobs now that are being destroyed as a result of this pandemic, and it's just really sad to see it.
Yeah, and they're just using the pandemic as a pretext to do something they always wanted to do in the first place.
Totally, yep, totally agree with you on that.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.